Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
And here's Tyrese Maxey. Go, you got to go. At 5, at 4, fading jumpers, an air ball tipped up and in. Tipped up and in with .9. The push ahead. Melton has that blocked. And Philly has won the game.
What a game, what a finish. We welcome you in. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. It's John Dickinson with you here. We got Cole Appelt in our Daly City studios. Jump in and join the conversation. What a comeback for the Warriors. And then things get chaotic after just a brutal start for Golden State in this game. They were down 30-10, and they get just an incredible effort in the fourth quarter and really in the second half to come back from 22 down again to wind up having the lead at 98-94 in the final couple of minutes here. And the Warriors end up losing the lead and losing the game, with the Sixers scoring the final 5 points of the game, and just an unbelievable finish. They throw away the inbounds pass with Pat Spencer trying to hit Buddy Hield. Edgecombe steals it. And then Edgecombe with the putback off of the first miss. And then the Warriors throw it ahead to DeAnthony Melton. Looks like Melton's got a layup to go in and win the game right back for Golden State. And Maxey with the block. Just a wild scene and a wild finish here as the Warriors in a game that looked really, really ugly early and kind of what you would expect the non-Steph, non-Jimmy Butler game to look like. For whatever reason, these games typically don't wind up being quite as ugly as you would anticipate. And you got to give a lot of credit to the fight again that was shown by a group that was led by Pat Spencer. I mean, Pat Spencer was cooking tonight. 16 points again. There was no question of whether or not he was going to finish the game tonight or not. 16 points, knocks down a couple of threes, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. I mean, commanding the team, really playing the entire fourth quarter and helping lead the charge here for Golden State, along with Buddy Hield, along with DeAnthony Melton, and Al Horford and Quentin Post right there. Guy Santos basically played the entire fourth quarter for the Warriors after not playing at all for the entire game, and he was out there as part of a group that really, just with effort and ball movement and defense and hustle, was able to come back and grab a lead in a game that became one that you think you really probably should have won, even though you were down 30-10 at the end of the first quarter and you were down by as many as 22 points early in the third quarter before the comeback started. And you just look at it at the end of the night, and it winds up being an incredibly just difficult loss to palate, because the Warriors do find themselves now under 500 and having to play a couple of more games here coming up on the weekend in Cleveland and Chicago. And those games are going to be played without Stephen Curry and potentially without Jimmy Butler. And Draymond Green went down in this game. Looked like maybe he re-aggravated the foot issue that had been bothering him of late. But all credit goes to the guys that ended up in the game to help lead that comeback. And again, it was a lot of Pat Spencer and Buddy Hield. And Buddy kind of ends up with a "what are you doing" kind of a moment at the end of the game there on the inbounds pass. And Spencer had played almost flawless basketball until the inbounds pass that was stolen by Edgecombe. Melton was terrific. They ran up against DeAnthony Melton's minutes restriction with about 4 minutes to go, and he wound up being on the bench. But Steve Kerr ends up bringing DeAnthony Melton back in this one to try and help close the game. But all told, the Warriors, it ends up in a devastating 1-point loss in a game where it was about as ugly as it's been at any point this season early on, with the 30-10 deficit at the beginning of this one. Notable, as we mentioned first, the players who helped the Warriors fight back and have a chance to win this game. Also notable who the Warriors among their worst players on the court tonight were, and who wasn't a part of the closing lineup. There was so much made about Brandon Pajemski, and should he have been out there against Oklahoma City down the stretch over Spencer? And I know there was a discussion as to, they thought about maybe going with Pat Spencer and Pajemski. There was no similar discussion or debate tonight. Pajemski was the worst player on the floor for the Warriors tonight. And a couple of the big takeaways, I mean, Steve Kerr is going to have to reevaluate, I think, just how much Brandon Pajemski is going to be playing moving forward here. And I know it's different because Steph's out, but Pajemski was, I think, maybe in this game at his worst, and that's saying something for the level that he's played this season. 0 for 5 from 3, minus 20, 6 points. He had 3 more turnovers. Notable in that he wasn't even a thought as the Warriors, and shouldn't have been, came down the stretch in this game because of the others who were playing well. And then the other notable was Jonathan Kuminga. Minus 18. I know I put it out on social media. I don't know whether Kuminga is not healthy enough to feel like he can drive and get to the basket, but the settling for jumpers, and he had 3 turnovers, minus 18, did score 9 points. He was on the glass a little bit, but almost identical poor efforts for Pajemski in his 20 minutes and Kuminga in his 20 minutes. So notable again that the players that the Warriors have been counting on among this young group are just nowhere to be found, and the worst 2 players on the floor on a night where you don't have Steph Curry, you don't have Jimmy Butler to begin with, and then you lose Draymond Green. Like, if anything, in a perfect world, you'd hope that those would be the 2 guys that are leading a gutsy, shot to win a game from down big type of a victory, and it just isn't the case. And so while we start to kind of hone in and focus in on, where does this team go from here, and the big picture things that are going to have to be done to right the ship for this team as we head toward the middle and eventually into December and January. And, I said it early in the game. I mean, it feels almost like the Warriors with Draymond going down and Jimmy not playing tonight and Steph being out for this road trip already. It almost feels like the Warriors are just content they're probably going to be 11-14 on December 12th. And at that point, season kind of starts over after they get the big long gap and the two games in 10 days stretch but they're going to be starting from, what is going to have to be an uphill climb if they're going to get back to being the team that they want to be, and also, put themselves in a position to be able to make some moves. But again, as we talk about every night, they can't make any moves for over a month. And so that's kind of my big takeaway from tonight is, well, what can you do in the interim? And I think a couple of things, and the biggest bright spot of the night, aside from Pat Spencer, was DeAnthony Melton, who ends up with 14 points in his return right at the 20-minute mark when he was taken out of the game. Had a pretty hard minutes cap based on the ACL injury and coming off of that. And so Steve Kerr went away from him with about 4 minutes to go, and then ended up playing him in the final minute of the game. But DeAnthony Melton is my big takeaway, my primary takeaway. I mean, yes, Pat Spencer, we've reached a point where, at least in the short term, Pat Spencer's going to have to play he's going to have to play more than Brandon Pajemski at this point. And, Pajemski's confidence, he's never typically somebody that seems to lack in confidence, but he's just not the better option between the 2 players right now. I do think Pajemski's a better player than Pat Spencer overall, but at this point, he's not. Like right now, he's not. So, and when it comes to just effort and ball movement and ability to, play with the right spirit, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of that tonight from a good chunk of the Warriors. And the 2 guys that stand out like a sore thumb in that are Pajemski and Kuminga. And so And unfortunately, those are the two guys that you would think also are at the forefront of the ability to move at the trade deadline. And it's getting to the point now where you start to question the value at all of either one of those guys in a potential deal, while also knowing that the Warriors are absolutely going to have to make a deal. So a number of different ways we can spray the conversation here tonight as we get Dubs OT going at 808 KNBR 415-808-5627 here. John Dickinson on the Sports Leader as we get things rolling on this Thursday night with the Warriors falling in the final seconds, 99-98, the final in Philadelphia. Warriors had the lead. All hell broke loose over the course of the final minute of this one, but the Warriors did have a 98-94 lead with a minute 12 to go after Pat Spencer had knocked down a three, and Philly ends up getting a Quentin Grimes bucket, and then all hell breaks loose basically from that point on. The and one, and then Melton travels. Maxey has a layup, rim out, but then it's a loose ball foul on the Warriors. The Sixers missed both free throws into a jump ball, so you got another stoppage. The Warriors win the jump ball. They take a timeout. Melton misses on the drive. The ball goes out of bounds. The Warriors challenge it. Initially, the call goes to Philly, and the Warriors challenge it. Sixers foul twice, then end up not fouling as they challenge the foul, thinking they're going to get the ball. They don't get the ball back. And then the Warriors, after having to call a timeout, can't get the ball in and throw it away with Spencer trying to hit Buddy Hield and Edgecombe with the steal. Philly ends up getting it back. Edgecombe with the putback. And then an incredible Tyrese Maxey block on Melton as the Warriors threw it ahead. And when the ball went ahead to Melton, it looked like he was going to get a layup and the Warriors were going to steal the win again after coming back from 22 down in the second half, and Philly up even more than that at 24. And the Warriors unable, even with the 32-19 fourth quarter advantage, even with a 64-43 second half advantage, this winds up being a bitter defeat for the Warriors at 99-98. So they dip to under 500 now at 11-12, and they will play in Cleveland coming up on Saturday. They'll play in Chicago coming up here on Sunday as well. And of course, we'll have Dubs OT after those games for you. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open, as well as the phone lines. Jump in and join the conversation. It's time to play Pat Spencer, potentially over Brandon Podziemski, at least in the short term. They got to figure out what's going on with Jonathan Kuminga. Is he quiet quitting on this team, or is he just not healthy enough to be able to attack and drive? Might have just been a camera shot at the end that was nothing, but I'm sure somebody's going to freeze frame it. Jonathan Kuminga smiling as he's shaking hands with the Warriors losing in the aftermath, and everybody kind of walking on the court. No doubt that's going to be something that's going to be analyzed here coming up. But yeah, let's get to some Cole's clicks. We'll get to the phone lines coming up here, but let's get it going here in the YouTube chat as the Warriors lose this one 99-98, but an unbelievable effort in the second half, which somewhat erased an ugly low point of a first quarter and first half. Again, I know you're not playing with Steph. I know you're not playing with Jimmy Butler, but the way this team played in the first quarter, I mean, it was just as bad a stretch as they've had at any point. I felt like this season. So ugly stuff. Cole Appelt. Let's get to some chats, and then we'll jump in and we'll get some phone calls as well here as we get things rolling into the 7 o'clock hour on Dubs OT. All right, what do we got here, Cole? What's jumping out? Kirk can't design one inbounds play for real. Of course, this is what we're not doing tonight. I'm not doing this tonight. Like, and this happened the other night, and I'm going to be honest, it ticked me the hell off. The Warriors make this comeback against Oklahoma City the other night, And then basically a huge chunk of the post-game show is Kerr blew it. Like, Steve Kerr didn't blow it. Brandon Pajemski and Jonathan Kuminga blew it because they freaking stunk in this game in the first half. If they get anything from those two players in the first half, maybe they come back and they're up by 8 points in the final. Like, this is not blame Kerr for, like, we're not doing that tonight. Again, should he be playing Spencer more than Pajemski moving forward? Sure. But yeah, I mean, this is not Kerr blew the inbounds. Like, come on, like that, really? Like that's really where, because this game gets close, we're gonna do that. Like, I'm not doing that tonight. I'm not. Joey Petcho, I think Pat Spencer was trying to get the inbounds pass to Melton. Heel brought his man into the picture unintentionally. Tough ending for Pat Spencer with that turnover and then the air ball. I think you're right, Joey, upon further review. And I was trying to watch it a couple of times here as I was given the opening monologue. It did look like, and I don't necessarily put it on Spencer. Spencer gets the turnover, but yeah, it did look like Buddy basically ran interference, which is another reason why I wouldn't put this on Steve Kerr at all. It to me was more of a Buddy WTF kind of a moment as you look at it a little bit more closely. So no, I think that's a good, like that's that's the kind of comment we want to have here on Dubs OT. That's the kind of analysis that we like to bring to the table here as we get things rolling. All right, let's get one more and then we'll get our first time out. We'll come back and we'll just kind of reset everything on a wild night. Yeah, Payne 707. Yeah, minus 38 for JK and Pods. Pods was a minus 20. Kuminga was a minus 18. I mean, make no mistake, worst two players on the floor for the Warriors in this game. The worst two players on the floor were Brandon Pajemski and Jonathan Kuminga. Bottom line. And you would think that these would be the two players that, in theory, you'd want to be counting on in a game like this where you don't have Steph, you don't have Jimmy. But the reality is we don't that never happens. Like the reality is that's not how this team, those guys don't step up and they're incapable. They're not talented enough. Like that's just the reality of it. They're not good enough to be able to step in these situations where guys are out and be carriers. It's just the reality of the situation. And, a bunch of guys that are just playing hard together that are less talented, really in both of these last two games against OKC and Philly, playing together, playing for each other, hustling, defending, moving the ball, unselfishly playing as a 5-player group. That's what's gotten the Warriors back into both of these games. And while you've had, for the most part, those two guys not a part of it at all. So yeah, the minus 38, and it honestly felt worse than that. And both of them were a big part of the reason why the Warriors ended up getting down as much as they did. But again, tonight, it's kind of twofold. Credit to the guys who helped bring them back. It's unfortunate the Warriors just can't seem to win one of these in the, high effort, nobody out. Everybody else kind of gets one here and there, and I'm sure the Warriors eventually will. But that's a whole lot of effort to basically take the same result as if you had been, embarrassed, as if you just embarrassed yourself with the way that you were playing in the first half. All right, let's take a timeout. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. We'll get to some phone calls coming back on the other side. Warriors lose 99-98 in Philly. It's Dubs OT with JD right here on the Sports Leader.
live from downtown.
Hurry, way downtown.
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader, streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Shot clock at 3. Gee checked it, spins, lays it in.
What was that?
The Warrior bench is going crazy.
Just spun him like a top. He went tornado move.
A 28-8 run.
I don't believe my eyes.
Yeah, Guy Santos, spectacular for the Warriors in the fourth quarter of this one. Hadn't played at all. I think that's another thing as you're looking for what can potentially change for the Warriors here moving forward if they have to play more games without Steph Curry and potentially Jimmy Butler. We'll get to Draymond Green coming up in a second. But, yeah, Guy Santos with an unbelievable driving reverse at that point, 95-92 Warriors. But they fall in this one after building a 98-94 lead with about a minute to go. The Warriors give up the game's final 5 points. Edgecombe with a big steal and then put back, and then Tyrese Maxey with a block on DeAnthony Melton as the Warriors were going down looking to win it in the closing seconds. Back here on Dubs OT with JD. Warriors lose it 99-98. They are 11-12, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We'll get more in the YouTube chat coming up with the Cole's Clicks. Cole Appelt in for Kyle Harr here again tonight. And before we get to the phone calls, do want to give everybody an update on Draymond Green postgame here. Per Anthony Slater of ESPN on hand in Philadelphia, Draymond Green in a walking boot postgame. Told Slater that Dominic Barlow landed on his right foot, and it's similar to when Donovan Clingan of Portland had landed on it last week. Draymond said he hopes and expects to keep playing through it, although, again, if you're in a walking boot, that doesn't – I don't think we're going to see Draymond Green Saturday or Sunday. I'll say that at a minimum, especially with the Warriors having – the 4 days off before they play a couple of games, and then they have another 3 days off. So we may not be seeing Draymond for a bit, but fortunately, I guess if Draymond is going to have to miss some time, they only have 4 games basically in the next 2 weeks with all of that off time upcoming. 2 of them, though, are coming up Saturday and Sunday. All right, 808 KNBR, let's get to the phones. JT in Oakland gets us tipped off here in the 7 o'clock hour on the Sports Leader. Hey, JT.
Hey, man. Yeah, it sounded like you said JT's ticked off. And, yeah, I 100% agree with everything you just said. Let's start with Kuminga and Pujansky. I've had it with both of them. They're so inconsistent, and they're inconsistent in the same way. They're low basketball IQ guys. They put their head down. They don't see the court. They over defend. I'm done with them. I think Spencer and even Seth Curry played better than both of those guys yesterday. So I'm already thinking, who else can we package to get on the trade? So I'm with you on that. I think Pat Spencer. It's 2 games, but he just seems under control. He makes the right plays. He makes the right pass. He plays like a good point guard should. As far as the inbound pass, yeah, that was a Buddy thing. And anyone who says that's Kerr's fault, they just don't know basketball. That's ridiculous. So that's kind of where I'm at the game. I'm not expecting much out of the team right now at this point with everybody out and us, having no bench. Good having Milton back, though. So I think we're cool with the guard position, even if we get rid of Pujansky. I don't see the value in him anymore. He's too inconsistent. And Kuminga, you're correct about what he did after the game. But even before that, on the last time out, he was one of those dudes just kind of not really engaged in the timeout. Everybody else on the team was on top of each other, and he was kind of in the background. His attitude just sucks, man. I'm ready for him to go.
Yeah, it's beyond time. Unfortunately for the Warriors on that front, they can't move him for another, 42 days, I think, is when this thing opens up. So we're 6 weeks away, I guess, January 15th. But he needs to be gone at this point. And yeah, everybody's up and cheering and going crazy And he's just kind of like, oh, damn, like if we win this game, it's going to be an even greater indictment because everybody's going to think I'm the problem. Well, guess what? You are part of the problem. You are part of the problem. Look, Brandon Pajemski right now is part of the problem. And so I hate the whole reading body language and guys smiling after the game and those kinds of things. But it's just, if you wanted to make the case that Jonathan Kuminga has quiet quit on this team since he was pulled from the starting lineup, you could, flat out. You absolutely could, whether it was all of a sudden the knees are sore and then he's going to miss some time and then he comes back. He's not driving the ball to the basket, which I say if he's not 100%, then he probably shouldn't be playing at all at this particular point in time, because he's settling for jumpers now more than he has at any point this season. And he's not driving to the basket, and he looks either unsure of himself because maybe he isn't at 100%. And if that's what it is, that's fine. But then he shouldn't be out there, because this version of Jonathan Kuminga is even worse than the last version of Jonathan Kuminga that we saw in the 5 or 6 games before he went out with injury, after he had played pretty well throughout the first 5 or 6 games of the season. And look, as far as Pajemski and Spencer and all of that goes, it's a long season, and sometimes you need to give a guy a break. Sometimes you need to go away from a player to let them clear their head or lessen the role a little bit. And I think right now that's where we're at with Pajemski in terms of, if Pat Spencer's got it cooking, then Pat Spencer's just going to play. Like, those two at this point have to be treated, I think, as equals in terms of whoever's playing better is going to get the bulk of the minutes. You probably need both of them still to play at this point, especially with Steph Curry out. But the other part of the equation that I wanted to get to too is just, it's DeAnthony Melton's return. I mean, that still is my number one thing from this game. DeAnthony Melton's going to take, I think, some minutes away from Buddy Hield, and I think he's going to take some minutes away from Brandon Pajemski. The only thing is, and Draymond spoke to this, you don't want to put it on DeAnthony Melton like he's going to be some kind of a savior, because he is coming off of an ACL injury himself. He's playing for the first time since November of last year, back to the Clay return game at Chase Center that the Warriors won early in that year, part of the 12-3 start. And so you don't want to put it on DeAnthony Melton like he has to be some kind of a savior, and he's on a 20-minute a night pitch count right now. So there's only so much he can do. And I think if he had been able to play the full final 4 minutes, I think the Warriors probably wind up hanging on and winning the game at that point. But Melton is going to be somebody that can help. Seth Curry is going to be somebody that I think can play some of the Buddy Hield minutes. And I agree with JT. I think they're probably good at the guard spot. They need a wing. They need a 3-and-D wing. They need some skill on the wing. The concerning part of tonight, though, is the fact that the two guys that are supposed to be the two guys that you'd be willing to throw in a trade to get you that player are your two worst players on the court on a night where you don't have your best 2 players, and then ultimately you don't have your best 3 players with Draymond Green going down due to injury. And so then it becomes a lot more problematic. The calendar makes it problematic because you can't trade Kuminga until January 15th, but both of these guys are rapidly turning themselves into a sunk cost in their own way, to a point to where, what kind of a trade is going to even be available? Who's going to want these guys, and what type of player are you going to be able to get back that can truly help you as the value of each of these players continues to decline here? So you have to factor that in terms of trying to make sure that you can keep the value built up enough, or keep appearances up. And I think Steve Kerr's in a really difficult spot with Kuminga specifically, because if Kuminga, and look, they know the answer. Like, we can speculate on it as to, is it a quiet quit? Is it an injury? Whatever it is, the coaching staff knows. And if they think that that's what it is, they really are in a tough spot right now where they kind of can't bench him, because if you bench him, then you're telling the entire NBA world that you don't want this guy. And I think everybody already kind of knows it, but teams are really going to lowball you in terms of what you're going to have the potential to take back. So it just creates a whole nother problem for the Warriors here as they now sit at 11-12 with a couple of more games to be played on the road here without Steph Curry. All right, 808 KNBR. Let's keep it moving on the phone lines. Danny in Vancouver up next here on Dubs OT on this Thursday. Hey, Danny.
Hey, JD. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. Wild night. What a wild game. You kind of think it's going to go one way, and then it completely goes the other way, but it winds up still being a loss.
It is. I just want to start out with some positives. That was a fantastic comeback, and I was going to say this win or lose, but if they give this kind of effort, it really it makes it so much more watchable. Obviously, so it's just if they give that effort and they're working hard, I can deal with the losses to a point. So I just want to say that was an amazing comeback effort. 100% agree. Melton is the real deal. I think is he only 28, JD? I think he's just 28, right?
Yeah, he is. You think he's older because he's been around and he's been a part of some teams. But yeah, DeAnthony Melton, I want to get the exact number. He's actually, I think he's only 27 right now.
Wow.
He's 28 in May. So yeah, he'll play the rest of this year basically at 27. So
sorry. So he's super in his prime, and he was impressive. I mean, he's not the savior, as you said, but he moves laterally so well. He's so good at point of attack. I mean, even the way he defended Maxey at the end, I thought was so impressive. And I know he was limited on minutes, so I was really pleased to see that, and just hope he's healthy, because I know he's got a great attitude. I think that Spencer's got to have regular rotation minutes now. I mean, I think he's earned that. So it's probably going to come at the expense of Pods. But he's got to have regular minutes, and he might not be great every night, but man, he really kind of brings the energy and the fire. So that's all good. Yes, Buddy Bonehead, he looked like that, your safety Mustafa breaking up that play at the very end. That was really unfortunate. So, but that's not on Kerr, by the way. Obviously that's not on Kerr. Regarding Kuminga, I have a different take, JD. Love to hear your thoughts.
Sure.
He reminds me a bit of the situation of McCaw. Remember Pat McCaw? And I think it was his uncle who was his agent, and he was getting some bad advice. I think Kuminga, I think it's not that he's given up. I think he's getting some bad advice. I really think they're saying, F it, just play your game and don't worry, because it's like, the parent who doesn't think their kid's the problem and their kid is the problem. And I really think he's getting bad advice. I know he's probably a decent guy, but I think his agent and his family and whatever, his posse, and are telling him, just play your game. You're great. Don't just play your game when you're out there. So I'm curious what you think of that take. And I he's so done. Like, he's just so done. I think the only thing they can do with Kuminga, JD, I was thinking about it, is just play him in the garbage minutes. At least he'll look good in the garbage minutes, and maybe, some teams will get fooled by that and say, okay, let's, this guy might have some potential. I'm serious. Just play him in the garbage minutes from now on. And very last thing I want to say, Nick Nurse is kind of a douche. I've never liked him, but he looks so unpleasant when he's arguing and fighting with the refs at the time. And anyways, it just don't like watching him at all. Thanks, JD. Look forward to your comments.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, it's funny. Nick Nurse, I go back to when he was coaching Toronto in the finals. I'll go with that part first. I found him to be quite enjoyable. I was at just about every press conference for that entire series from start to finish, the full 6 games, and I found him to be pretty enjoyable. But yeah, I've sort of gotten that vibe from him a little bit more as time has gone on. Like maybe the success that he had at as such a new head coach and getting the title under his belt so quickly, maybe changed him a little bit, or the personality hits a little different at that point. As far as Kuminga, like, he's going to have to they have to figure out some kind of limited role for him. The problem is it just feels like it's getting worse. He's become, he's been less impactful in each of the first 3 games than the prior game, right? He wasn't good the first game, but he did hit a couple of threes in the fourth quarter. He wasn't good in the first half of the second game against OKC, but he did have some rebounds in the third quarter that helped to get the Warriors initially back into that game against the Thunder, and then doesn't play at the end, and his agent's popping off on social media, basically saying he should have been out there when he really shouldn't have been out there. Like, there were cases to be made for a number of other players. The debate on Tuesday night was, should Pat Spencer have finished the game over Pods, or should Pods and Pat Spencer have been out there and maybe Buddy Hield not have been out there at the end of the game against the Thunder? Like, that was the debate. There was no debate about whether Kuminga should have been. Now, maybe he could have played a little bit in the fourth quarter, but as far as him being in the closing lineup, I mean, give me a break on that note. But as far as it goes, like, if you bench him completely, you're taking whatever little value he currently has in terms of what a team will offer, and you're lessening that value immediately. Now, the good news is the NBA has salary matching. And so, a team that may want him, you're still going to get a $22.5 to $24 million player, back in return. But the problem is, and I was having a conversation with somebody about this during the game, it's as he becomes closer to a sunk cost, it's just, you're only going to be able to get back a potential problem, right? You're only going to get back a team, a player on a team that also views their player as a sunk cost, right? It's we've got a guy that makes $22.5 million or $23 million. He's got 3 years left on his deal. You want to take him? We'll send you this guy, and maybe we'll attach something else to it, and we'll take Kuminga off your hands, but they're going to potentially get off Kuminga or sign Kuminga quick. It creates a lot of issues, I think, in terms of just what you can get. But make no mistake, it's a wrap as it relates to Jonathan Kuminga, and we'll see. Draymond a little bit more optimistic in what he told Anthony Slater about the ability to continue to play. But you would think, on paper, you would think if Draymond's going to have to miss a couple of games, this becomes an opportunity for Kuminga to get out there and be able to help this team a little bit. But I don't know how that's even part. I don't even know how you could even think that for a second, the way things stand at this particular point in time. And so, it just continues to get uglier there. And look, it's an easy decision. I think Pods is going to have to play because you really don't have another point guard on the team at this point. It's just a matter of lessening the minutes. And if Pat Spencer's got it going, then Pat Spencer's just going to finish the game. Or if Pat Spencer, like he did tonight, is going to play more minutes than Brandon Podziemski is going to play. So I think that's the way you have to look at it as it relates to that. All right, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Warriors lose this one 99-98 to the 76ers. As we roll on here, Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. Warriors 11-12, under 500. 669 says the Warriors would be a better team if they flat out cut Kuminga. Moody has been a better player than Kuminga for over 2 years now, no doubt. Although the thing that continues to be an issue, not only for Kuminga and Podziemski, but even Moses Moody, is the lack of consistency. It's just, you just night to night do not know what you're going to get from any of those three guys. And it's even, the gap is even greater in terms of knowing what you're going to get from those guys when you take Jimmy Butler away and you take Steph Curry away. Like they Pods and Moody, when Steph and Jimmy play, and going back to last year in the 23-8 finish, they were capable role players for this team down the stretch in a lot of games and in the season when they were winning games. Like they were capable. Moody wasn't killing you even on some of the nights where he wasn't hitting shots down the stretch. Pods was a connector. in those games. Kuminga, I'll leave him out of that part of the conversation because he was injured for the most part. And so he really, other than the Laker game and a couple other games, didn't play a lot in the finish to the season. So I'll leave him out of that. But Moody and Podziemski were far more consistent last year. But I think the issue is, and this is where the Warriors find themselves at a crossroads as it relates to this roster. Podziemski should be your 7th or 8th man. Like, he's fine if he's your 7th or 8th man. The problem is he's having to be a starter next to Steph a lot of the time, or a starter in place of Steph, and somebody that you're depending on, even on a night where this Warriors team is whole, you're depending upon him or Kuminga or Moody to basically be your 4th best player after Steph and Jimmy and Draymond. And Kuminga, Podziemski, and Moody are all incapable of consistently being even the 4th best player on a night where it's Steph and Jimmy and Draymond that are going to be the guys that are going to be out there. And that's the issue. It's not that the Warriors have a bunch of 7 to 15 guys on their roster. Hell, I'd say the Warriors have a bunch of 7 to like 11 guys on their roster. I don't even think they have a lot of 15 types on their roster. I think the Warriors have a lot of, the issue is they don't have good enough 4th, 5th, and 6th best players on their roster, and they're asking guys to fill that void that are incapable at this point of filling that void consistently. Let's get a couple of more Cole's clicks here before we take our next time out, and then we'll do a lengthy YouTube chat session coming up here at the bottom of the hour. We got our Sounds of Dubs OT. Will be coming up. We'll look around the league as well. Diggum, 1166. Warriors sent Poole to the G League, and he was never as bad as Pods has been. I would disagree with that. He was pretty bad his rookie year. He was really bad his rookie year. We forget about the 1920 season, and they sent him to the G League at the beginning of 2021, back during COVID when nobody could go to games and we were all stuck at home and all that. He was pretty bad then. And I will say worse than Pods is now, certainly. But Pods, I mean, I can't dispute right now. I mean, I don't think it's to the level of where he needs to go down to the G League and play, but he definitely needs to be playing fewer minutes, I think, and counted on less. To me, it's give him a breather. And I don't know whether it means Pat Spencer start, because the moment Pat Spencer starts in these games where Steph's out, teams are going to start to circle Pat Spencer, and Pat Spencer's going to go from being kind of an afterthought on a scouting report to somebody that's kind of been the straw that stirs the drink. And that means teams are going to start to put some big time defenders on him, especially with Steph and Jimmy out. And things are going to get a lot more difficult for Pat Spencer. So I give him all the credit in the world for how he's played. We talked about it the other night. The dude is unafraid. He's got some serious moxie. He's got an edge to him. He believes he's an NBA player. I mean, hell, give him a full NBA contract right now. I think in reality, that's going to have to, rip up the two-way and give him a spot on the 15-man roster. I think the Warriors are probably going to have to make a trade, send 2 out for 1 or 3 out for 2 to open up a spot. I think Pat's going to earn his spot in terms of being one of the top 15. But the dude plays with a chip on his shoulder, like he's ticked off that he's on a 2-way deal while the Warriors played the first month and a half of the season holding that 15th spot open for Seth Curry. Right? Like if Pat plays like he's got an edge to him, like, why don't you just give me that spot and figure out the rest of it as you go. So, you respect and you like Pat Spencer, but at the same time, again, as he becomes more known on some of these scouting reports, I think things are going to also change for Pat Spencer, and you're going to need, a multitude of players to get you through an NBA game. All right, let's get a couple more from Diggum. Horace Bird, 5879. Can the Warriors bring back the mid-range? Well, one thing they were doing in the second half that they weren't doing in the first half was getting into the paint and getting to the basket and getting to the free throw line. I cannot believe the way they just cast off from 3-point range in the first half. I mean, it was an embarrassment. It was like one pass, first open three, cast off. Cole, you got something on that?
Yeah, I got a question for you, JD. Whatever happened to the Sean Livingston archetype, man? You know, it'll be one of my favorite Warriors of all time.
No doubt. I mean, the mid-range has died because of analytics in part, and unless you're just an elite shooter in the mid-range, right? Kevin Durant in his prime, great in the mid-range. Chris Paul in his prime, great in the mid-range. Like, if you're not going to make that shot 75, 80% of the time when it's open, it's just become a bad shot, right? Get all the way to the basket, get to the free throw line, take the three, right? Step back, step out, and take the three, keep it moving. But yeah, I mean, you need, Tim Kawakami says this all the time of the SF Standard. I wholeheartedly agree with it. It's about the tough twos, right? He likes players. And I like players that'll get you the tough twos, the in-between. The Warriors got a lot of in-between buckets against the Thunder in the game on Tuesday night in the second half. And that's what allowed for them to come back in large part in the second half. But yeah, this roster that the Warriors have without Steph right now and without Jimmy to kick out to guys who are open and Steph to just be Steph and be the system, this team is not right now in a position where they should be shooting nearly as many threes as they were in the first quarter of this game and in the first half of this game. I mean, I'm looking at, they shot 26 3-pointers in the first half. They were 6 for 26, and Podziemski 0 for 5. Buddy Hield 1 for 4. Al Horford 1 for 5. I mean, think about that. Horford, Podziemski, and Buddy Hield were 2 for 14 from 3, and a lot of them were just horrific shots, Cole. They were horrific. So, yeah, it's more of the in-between game, I think, than maybe the true mid-range that, especially with this team that they're playing right now, they need to try to find. All right, let's get one more. We'll take a timeout. Ian J., the lesser talent guys on the roster help this team more than the supposed future cornerstones of the franchise all-star potential. My ass. I mean, wow. I mean, it's flat out true. And it's energy. It's energy and it's team ball, right? It goes back to something that Draymond said about agendas and Jimmy when they're talking about agendas, right? Pat Spencer doesn't have an agenda. Guy Santos doesn't have an agenda. DeAnthony Melton doesn't have an agenda. They just play team basketball. And you know what? Maybe they're going to be not talented enough on a given night like tonight or against the Thunder on Tuesday night to win the game, but they're going to play together and they're going to compete and they're going to go about it in a way to where it's agenda free. And as our buddy Danny in Vancouver was saying, it's more refreshing. It's more refreshing to watch a team that's going to, again, you play enough games with this group that they played with these last couple of games. Eventually, the chickens are going to come home to roost, so to speak, and you're just going to start getting blown out and teams are going to throttle you. But in the short term, just playing simple basketball and playing with energy and playing with some an agenda-free spirit, I think is important. And yeah, the lesser talent guys do it. I mean, the Warriors are in this unique position where they've got their big three, and then they've got a bunch of these guys like Guy Santos and Pat and guys up and down the roster that are just fighting to be on NBA teams. And then they've got the middle ground of guys that first round picks that were expected to do a lot, and those guys consistently aren't bringing the energy in the way that the guys at the back end of the roster are doing it. It's created this problem that's been much more prevalent here in the time that Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and now Draymond Green have been out. So, all right, let's take a timeout. 808 KNBR. If you want to jump in and join the conversation, we do have a phone line open, 415-808-5627. Warriors lose this one after a spirited comeback against the Philadelphia 76ers. 99-98 is the final. Warriors are 11-12. We're talking about it. We'll get to our Sounds of Dubs OT coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll look around the league as well as we continue on here. John Dickinson on the Sports Leader.
Dub Nation, this is the real and inside story on Warriors basketball. Dubs OT with John Dickinson continues. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
All right, Warriors lose 99-98 to the Philadelphia 76ers. They're 11-12, a 10-point first quarter for Golden State. As they were down 30-10 at the end of the first quarter, 56-34 at the half. They trailed by as many as 24. They do come all the way back, and they grab the lead. Golden State with a 4-point lead with about 1:12 to go. It looked like they were going to get what would be the most improbable victory of the season, considering no Steph Curry, no Jimmy Butler. Draymond Green left the building in Philadelphia in a walking boot. Per Anthony Slater of ESPN got rolled up on by one of the Philadelphia bigs, but wasn't meant to be. The Warriors kind of bungle the final minute a little bit, and they end up getting beat by Edgecombe, the rookie, as he had a big steal and a putback to allow Philly to get the win. Big block from Tyrese Maxey on DeAnthony Melton in the final second. So 808 KNBR, we'll get to the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line in just a moment, more from the YouTube chat, but let's go to the phones and get Duck Sauce up here in San Jose on the Sports Leader. What's going on tonight, Duck Sauce?
Jay Dilla, what's going on, my guy? Yeah, just a few things, man. I'm one thing I think I'm over with JD on this squad is after Jimmy, Draymond, and Steph, like no longer pretending that any of these other guys deserve to start over any of the true bench guys, because they're not any better. They're all the same. That's the problem. They're all the same, JD. Like I'm done pretending Moody, Kuminga, or Pods have the right to start over those guys when they're not clearly more talented. They're just not. I mean, the whole reason Spencer looks better is because he's an actual point guard. That's part of the problem. Like, we keep calling Podziemski a point guard. He's not a point guard. He don't have the foot speed or the handle to break people down and create shots. At least Spencer can create shots for people. I mean, I'm not trying to say Spencer's the savior, but I think Podziemski's playing out of position, and that's not his fault. I thought, his first 5 minutes tonight was some of the worst starter minutes I've ever seen in the 40 years that I've watched basketball. Loving the game. Like it was awful, man. Just pathetic. And aside from him and Kuminga being terrible, another guy I'll throw in there, Al Horford is absolutely cooked, JD. He has no legs. I mean, he was just as bad. Like, I think Melton is definitely going to help. To me, Melton is already an upgrade from Podziemski at Moody at either the 1 or the 2, wherever you want to slide him. And as far as ball handlers, to me, moving forward, it's Steph, Melton, and Spencer, and that's it, man. Like, I'm tired of pretending these other guys have talent when they don't. They're not talented. So that's all I got, JD. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer, my guy. I love your hard work as always. And if I don't talk to you, happy holidays. Have a good one.
Yeah, you as well, Duck Sauce. You better give us a call here before the holidays are over. We still got a lot of month left sitting here on December 4th. But no, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, Moody, Kuminga, and Podziemski. And look, Podziemski was the worst player on the floor tonight. Like, that's just and at the beginning and the 30-10. I mean, just flat out, I think it's a strong point that the skill set of Pat Spencer and the skill set of Brandon Podziemski are very different. I mean, Spencer does have a better handle. Spencer is more of a true point guard. Spencer can run pick and roll and get to a spot and set somebody up. Podziemski is more of a combo guard. He's more of a connecting, you don't want to put the ball in his hands in the traditional point guard manner. But on this team, he is somebody that can play a little too. They've liked him with Steph in the past, although that's become more problematic this year defensively. If that's your backcourt, playing those two together in terms of defenses, it worked well at the end of last season. It was a big part of the 23-8 was Pods and Steph starting together in the backcourt. But yeah, I mean, the skill set for Spencer it hits different on some nights. That's just reality. And it is unfortunate because, on nights where on nights where Kuminga is like he was tonight, or Podziemski is like he's been of late, and Moses Moody's not hitting shots, it's unfortunate, but because it makes it incredibly difficult as a coach if you get into the game of, Kuminga doesn't have it, so do I go to Guy? And then you start playing Guy, and then Guy doesn't have it. And then you go back to Kuminga. And it creates this scenario of not knowing who the right guy to play on the right night is, because you just don't know what you're going to get from any of these guys. And I'll be honest, it will be the same thing. If I told you right now, and this is just being real, but if I told you right now, Pat Spencer's gonna play Podziemski's minutes right now, like Pat Spencer's gonna be the starting point guard until Steph Curry comes back from his injury, and Moses Moody's going out of the starting lineup, and they're going to put somebody else. They're going to put Guy Santos in Moody's spot, basically. Those guys, as time goes on, are going to have bad games, and you're going to say, damn it, we got to get them out of there. And you got to it's too difficult on a night in, night out basis, because they are all, and look, I think Podziemski's more talented than Pat Spencer. I do think Moody's more talented than Guy Santos. Kuminga might be more talented than both of them, just in terms of rear, just raw ability and athleticism. But the question of, combinations and knowing what you're going to get is absolutely there. Melton is already an upgrade. I mean, yeah, the problem with DeAnthony Melton, though, is the fact that you can't play him 30 minutes a game. So he has to be he helps you, and he's really good. He's a good defender. I think in a perfect world, Melton's playing next to Steph as the starter. But in a perfect world, Melton wouldn't be a guy that's been incredibly injury prone throughout the course of his career and is 27 and can play 30 to 35 minutes a game because he's 27 and in his prime. But he can't do that because of the injury history and the concerns there. So they're going to have to keep him, it's 20 minutes right now. He's going to be more of a 25 to 30 minute a game guy. And I also think he's probably going to be a not playing back-to-backs kind of a guy, at least initially. Like, he's going to have to be eased up into that, and they're going to have to watch his minutes because he's had such a difficult time staying healthy. So as much as DeAnthony Melton is perfect for this team in terms of skill set, body type, ability, you want him next to Steph, and you want him to be the backup point guard, and you want him to be in the closing lineup in a playoff series. You can't just run him out there 35 minutes a night because he's going to break down. So it comes at a cost if you're going to look to use him in that same way. So yeah, Horford, that was the other thing Duck Sauce brought up. It has been ugly. I mean, the quick shots, and tonight I don't think he was. I mean, Al Horford's got to make shots. Like, I don't care if he has 4 assists. I don't care if he has 6 rebounds. He was 1 for 7, and he took some horrible ones. Like, I mean, one dribble 3. I mean, everything is short. He's got no legs. He's quick shooting. Like, forget about the fact that he doesn't have his legs. He's quick shooting. Like, what is this, like, arm shot? Like, just like quick release arm shot. Everything's short. Like, that is, Al Horford looked like a guy hadn't played in 2 weeks in the game tonight. He also looked like a guy that's going to turn 40 in June. So, I mean, it's not looking good in terms of, his ability to be able to contribute, because the number one thing that he was brought in to do was to hit some threes, to be a stretch big. And to this point, he's been unable to be that stretch big, and he's been ineffective, and he hasn't been healthy. I do think it's a good sign that he was able to come back and play tonight. But and he's another guy that even if he was playing at an extremely high level, he's another guy that he's only going to be playing 20 minutes and maybe 25 in a playoff series if you've got, a couple of off days in between, a game 1 and a game 2, or a game 3 and a game 4 of a playoff series. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Appreciate the call from Duck Sauce. Keeping it moving here on the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line, 831. Warriors are like the Giants have been. A number of solid level 3 players, but missing level 2. Tough to watch teams when they lack key talent. And yeah, the Warriors just don't have enough of the number 2 type players consistently. They know who their top 3 guys are, but then beyond that, there's just too many question marks. It's so funny. They spent a year, 2 years, basically, because Klay Thompson had dipped to the point where he was no longer a bona fide number 2. I think in his final year with the Warriors, really even going back to the 23 year, I think he was not at that level, and Jordan Poole had gotten punched, and so he wasn't able to really be that guy. Wiggins was in and out, so he couldn't be that guy. Like, and this is the first year after winning the championship. So they didn't have they thought they had, Poole and Wiggins and Klay combined could be the 2, 3, and 4, depending upon the night, right? Going back to when they win the title. And then, like I said, Wiggins had missed a bunch of time with the personal issues, and Klay Thompson had a significant decline and was unaccepting of the fact that he was declining. And, Jordan Poole was not the same after Draymond popped him. So it wound up being, you didn't have a 2, and then Jordan Poole was gone, and Klay was even worse the next year and ended up gone. And you had to trade Wiggins to finally get your number 2 in Jimmy Butler. So now you've got the number 2 and the baseline of, and Draymond's your third most important player, obviously, important to the offense, important to the defense. But now you don't know who your guys you can count on beyond that are consistently. And this is where I think the Warriors miscalculated. They miscalculated because they thought they had Podziemski and Moody as those next 2 guys. They did, flat out. They thought Podziemski was going to step right back in, play next to Steph. Moody was going to play next to Steph. They like what they got from Quentin Post down the stretch. They thought, hey, add a guy like Melton to take a little of the pressure off of Podziemski, and you got action. Go get Horford, take a little bit of the pressure off Quentin Post. You got action. You got enough stretch bigs to play either one of those guys. You can play Draymond at center if you want. You can play Draymond at the 4 with Horford. You could play Draymond at the 4 with Post. The shooting would help Kuminga try to create some kind of a bench role. Like, that was their hope, was that those guys would help elevate Kuminga. And none of it's worked out. None of it's worked out to this point. Horford's been a bust to this point. Podziemski is half the player he was to finish last year. Kuminga's a complete mess now at this point, and Moody is still inconsistent. And there are too many nights where it's like, did Moses Moody play? Like, was Moses Moody out there? And so, he has that tendency to kind of float some nights. And again, as much as you like Moses Moody, he is not a true point of attack defender against every type of guard. He's just not. He's better against the sturdier, more physical, bigger lead guards. He's not as good against the quicker lead guards. And so he becomes somebody that on nights where he doesn't make shots becomes more and more difficult to play. Now, I think Moody still is a rotation player on a playoff caliber team, but can he be somebody that you're starting 2 on a night in, night out basis? And I think the answer we're finding is probably not. What would the Warriors' best lineup be right now? It's probably Moody. I would probably still lean Moody at the 3. Right now, I would say it's probably Steph, Melton. But again, are you going to start Melton when you are going to have him on a pitch count and a minutes restriction? But I would say, not factoring in any of that, I would say it's Steph, Melton, Moody, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler and Draymond, basically. And then if you want to take Melton out or Moody out, you can put Quentin Post in At that point, play Quentin play Jimmy at the 3, play Draymond at the 4, play QP at the 5, and then take Melton out to limit some of his minutes. Maybe you play Moody at the 2, take Moody out. At that point, play Jimmy at the 3, bump Moody down to the 2. Like, there are different ways you can go about doing it. But I think that's the sort of the perfect world. But who are the two guys that aren't a part of any of that right now? It's the two guys we've been talking about. As much as you want to celebrate a great comeback, it's how did we get to the point where the Warriors were down and it was so ugly to begin with? And it's very much because of a couple of guys who have just been a major part of the problem here to begin the season. And it goes back to Brandon Pajemski and Jonathan Kuminga. All right, let's get a couple of Cole's clicks here. This segment as well. Before we take a timeout, we'll get to our sounds of Dubs OT coming up here in just a moment. San Jose Jazz fan 8, Kerr probably won't start Pat Spencer until he turns 30 next July 4th. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I would probably, and people aren't going to like this, I would probably keep starting Pajemski, but that doesn't mean that he's going to play more than Pat at this point. But it just, because again, and not that young players and first round picks need to be this fragile, but I kind of feel like Pajemski needs a little bit of a shakeup. He needs a little bit of a wake up call. Like, hey, bro, this is how we need you to play, and we're going to put you on the bench, but we want you to come in and, play this. It's kind of like what they've had to do with Kuminga a few times. Like, hey, man, we're going to sit you down. You're going to come off the bench, and this is what we want. We want these 3 things. Keep it moving, take the open shot, defend, play with energy. And you do that, and you know what? You're probably going to end up playing more than Pat Spencer because you are a better player than Pat Spencer. When Pajemski's at his best and Pat Spencer's at his best, Pajemski's a better player. Like, let's not get carried away here. But right now, Pajemski's nowhere near his best, and Pat Spencer's playing great, and Pat Spencer is a better player right now, today, as we sit here on December 4th. And he certainly was tonight. So, I mean, I can understand it, but my goodness, I don't think you would lose Pajemski if you do that. But it is a locker room dynamic that you have to account for. And you also have to account for how it's going to be viewed in terms of the trade value, because that's the other thing at the end of the day is you're not that you want to trade these guys, but you want the value to be enough for a Kuminga and a Pajemski and a Moody to where you can trade them for somebody. I mean, we're talking about, in a good chunk of this show before the game went completely bonkers, was going to be talking about the latest with Giannis and some of the odds as to where he's going to go. And I know there was another report today. Hey, the Warriors are going to enter the Giannis sweepstakes. Get this. The Warriors are going to enter it. And the report was the Warriors could offer Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajemski, and 4 first-round picks. I'm going to laugh at the first part of that if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, because neither one of them, when OKC can offer, Kassan Wallace and picks galore and a couple of other guys that they can offer Lou Dort, who's not even playing for them right now. They can offer a bunch of guys. When the San Antonio Spurs can offer the same amount of picks and De'Aaron Fox and maybe Keldon Johnson or Vassell can get thrown in there. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, which offer do you think you would choose if you're Milwaukee at that point? Like, you're not taking Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Pajemski. Now, you might want the 4 first-round picks, especially if 2 of them are going to be after Steph retires. But we also don't know when Steph's going to retire either. What if Steph plays 4 more years? Like, everybody just assumes Steph's done in 2 years. Steph could play 4 more years. Like, why? Like, right now, I mean, you never know when the end comes. But I mean, it's incredible. Like, the Warriors are getting in the Giannis sweepstakes. Kuminga and Pajemski. I mean, I'm hanging up I'm not even answering the phone.
Bag of Lays and
I'm not even
a
answering the phone.
couple draft picks.
I'm not even answering the phone if I'm Milwaukee on that. All right, let's take a timeout. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. More in the chat coming up. We'll get to our sounds at Dubs OT as well. Warriors lose to the 76ers 99-98. We're talking about it. Dubs OT with JD right here on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no ball.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, we got a lot to get to here as we get into the 8 o'clock hour. Dubs OT with JD. Warriors lose to Philly tonight, 99-98. They came from 24 down. They had a 4-point lead with a minute to go. They end up giving up the final 5 points of the game in the final minute, and they lose this one to fall to 11-12 on the season. Pat Spencer, a spark plug for the Warriors in this one, 16 points, 4 boards, 4 assists. He was a team best, plus 17. DeAnthony Melton helping out. It was basically a Pat Spencer, DeAnthony Melton, Buddy Hield-led crew along with Guy Santos and Quentin Post that helped the Warriors come back in a big fourth quarter for Golden State. But the big fourth quarter goes for naught. 32-19 Warriors in the fourth. It had been 32-14 when the Warriors had the lead. They outscored the Sixers 64-43 in the second half, but not enough to prevail in this one as Philly gets the 1-point victory. More from the YouTube chat coming up. Best YouTube chat in sports. We'll get another installment of Cole's Clicks here this hour. Also, we will get to the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line, but let's get a more lengthy edition of Sounds of Dubs OT here tonight. We got a lot of good Steve Kerr. We got a couple of Pat Spencer cuts and some DeAnthony Melton in his first game in over a year with the Warriors. So let's get right to it. Right out of the chute, here is Steve Kerr on the Warriors' big comeback that put them in position to be able to get the win.
The effort was phenomenal. Felt like we really deserved to win, and I feel terrible for the guys that we couldn't hang on. Because the effort, the energy, the commitment, Guy hasn't played in a couple of weeks and, playing the whole fourth quarter, he's like a plus 17 or something. I mean, showing what he did last year, at the end of the year, and the way Pat, got us into our offense and got downhill on pick and roll and distributed the ball. And the way the guys fought, so good to have Melt back. Watching him compete, out there and QP, it was a beautiful effort, and it's just a shame we couldn't finish it off.
It was a shame, and I think, the big takeaway there is, and we knew DeAnthony Melton already was going to be able to help this team when they're whole, when they have everybody. He helped them tonight without Steph and Jimmy and Draymond, so he's a keeper. They just have to make sure that they can keep him healthy. I think the other thing I read in Steve Kerr's voice there is more Pat Spencer and more even Guy Santos are coming, at least in the short term, to try and get this thing turned around. And again, the Warriors are probably going to have to – we'll see if Jimmy can come back and play on Saturday in Cleveland or Sunday in Chicago. But I think you're going to have to play everybody right now, given – where things are at with this roster and not having potentially the top 3 players on the roster. But I think with Steve Kerr, he's just going to have to search more quickly if guys don't have it to look to play other guys. And I think that's going to, more Pat Spencer to be sure, but I think it also is going to mean more Guy Santos, I think, a little bit in the short term as a reward for the effort that he brought to the table in this game tonight. All right, let's hear another from Steve Kerr. This one, and we'll kind of go a little bit more rapid fire because we got a lot of cuts we want to get to in this segment. This is what Steve Kerr had to say about sticking with the bench. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer for me, but what did the head coach think of sticking with the bench group down the stretch as the Warriors came back and grabbed the lead?
Tonight was a no-brainer. The other night was a tricky decision, but tonight was obvious. Pat was just incredible out there and controlled the game, and he's just about the right stuff. It's organizationally, you just want to stand for something. You want to have an identity, and it's got to be about competitive spirit and just playing together and competing, and that's what was so beautiful about what that group did down the stretch.
So there you go. Yeah, no-brainer. Kerr and I aligned on that one. And yeah, there was a more difficult decision because again, the other night it wasn't. Pods played pretty well the other night compared to the way he played tonight. Tonight, Pods was again he was the worst player on the court, and the rest of that group just to kind of, I mean, Buddy was out there at the start of the fourth with Pat, with Moses Moody, Guy Santos. Guy Santos played the entire fourth quarter until the final, I think 15, 20 seconds. And then Al Horford was out there at the beginning. Quentin Post came in for Horford. Melton came in for Moody. They got Melton's 5 minutes in and then pulled him at about the 4-minute mark as he reached his minutes cap for the game. Will Richard came in for Buddy. Buddy came back in for Melton, and then Melton ended up coming back in the final minute and a half for Will Richard. But it was basically Pat Spencer and Guy Santos playing the whole fourth quarter. And, Quentin Post was out there grinding and hitting, some big shots and coming up with some big plays there as well. So I don't think there was nothing to quibble with in terms of the way Steve Kerr finished the game tonight, and who played and also who didn't. All right. The headliner tonight, not named DeAnthony Melton, was Pat Spencer. And really it's 2 games in a row for Pat, going back to Tuesday against the Thunder, that somebody that's, not even on a full NBA contract, able to come in. And we've seen this before from Pat when he's been given some opportunities to play. Here is Steve Kerr on Pat Spencer and what he's brought to this Warrior squad.
He played 24 tonight, maybe 22 the other night. So without Steph, for sure, he's got to be out there. And it'll be great to find a way to get him on the roster because he's kind of the perfect guy to have, as a backup. He can win you games like he almost did tonight. If he doesn't play, he brings the same energy, the same attitude the next game. And so be great if we could find a way, but it's a little tricky.
And Pat Spencer at this point, I think he's been active. I mean, you get, I think 50 games. And so he's in the 20s in terms of the games, I think, where he's been active to this point this year. So they've got a little ways to go to be able to figure it out. But as far as getting him that 15th spot, I think it's probably going to have to be, I don't think anybody's getting cut off this roster right now as things currently stand to free up a spot. But I do think when the Warriors eventually make a trade, they could wind up making a 3-for-2, send 3 out, take 2 back, send 2 out, take 1 back, send 5 out, take 4 back. Like there could be a number of different ways this thing shakes out in terms of freeing up a spot for Pat to eventually be signed to a full NBA contract and become one of the 15 on the roster. All right, let's continue on here with a couple of more from Steve Kerr. He was asked a little bit of a curious question, but he was asked about not finishing the game with Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, and Al Horford. Horford did wind up back in there for the final minute or so, but here is what Steve Kerr had to say about that.
Every game's different. So tonight was about the other group. Next game could be about those 3. So you just roll from game to game and do what you can to try to win the game. And that's why we have 15, 17 players, but if you include our 2 ways, like we got a lot of guys who can play and I think we played 14 people tonight. So, we believe in our depth and we know that a lot of guys can help us win.
But who are the right 14 on a given night, I think becomes the question. And in what Kerr said there, and I think, he's being diplomatic, but he's also being honest. Like Saturday night in Cleveland, it might be Moody, Kuminga, and Horford and not, Pat Spencer and Buddy Hield and Quentin Post, right? I mean, it might be, or it might be Moody, Kuminga, and Horford and not Buddy Hield, Guy Santos, and Quentin Post. And therein lies the problem, is the fact that you just on a given night don't know. There are too many night-to-night unknowns for the Warriors as they're currently set up. There's just too many night-to-night unknowns. And the three guys that you do know are all north of 35. So the three guys you count on are all either going to have to be dealing with some kind of injury or having to get a rest night here and there. And so you have to be able to account for that in addition to the fact that you're not necessarily getting the consistency from everybody else. So it's a tough predicament to be in. But again, as I've said a lot, the Warriors have earned the position that they're in. Like, nobody's feeling sorry for the Warriors. Like, they had an offseason that was held hostage by Jonathan Kuminga. They own some culpability in that. As I've said, I think ultimately, not giving Kuminga away for a player that you don't think can come in and be a factor, and holding the asset until at least the trade deadline this season, like, I was comfortable with the way that played out. But make no mistake, like, they came up with a plan that they ultimately executed. But Mike Dunleavy and Joe Lacob and Kirk Lacob, like, they all have to be held accountable for the deficiencies on this roster. And if they believed a little too much in Podziemski and Moody and Kuminga's ability specifically to be the fourth, fifth, and sixth best players on this roster, then they have to own up to that straight up. And not only do they have to own up to it, but they have to fix it over the next 2 months, because as we hit December 5th here in a couple of hours, the trade deadline is February 5th. So we are 2 months away from the trade deadline. We're still a month plus away. I think 42 days until January 15th, when Kuminga's window can be open in terms of being able to move him. All right, another Steve Kerr, big one late. What the heck happened on the inbounds play? You had Pat Spencer, looked like he was trying to hit DeAnthony Melton, and then kind of a WTF Buddy Hield moment as Buddy runs and brings his man Edgecombe into the play, and the ball gets thrown and Edgecombe makes the play. That was my read on it. After review, and we had a great commenter in the YouTube chat that brought that point up very early on in the show. What was Steve Kerr's take on what happened on the inbounds play that led to the turnover that led to the Warriors ultimately losing this game?
Yeah, I mean, we had to inbound it, I think, 3 or 4 times in the last 30 or 40 seconds, and that one was tough. It looked like Melt was open, but I think Buddy thought that he needed to give Pat an outlet, and so they kind of came into the same area. I think Pat was trying to hit Melt, and Buddy was just trying to help him out. So, the play was for him to be in the backcourt to open up that space. But I'm sure Buddy felt like it was going to be a 5-second violation, so he ran up, and it's just an unfortunate play.
And players are taught in that situation. I mean, if you're going away from the play, but the clock is running, and you think, just try to get to somewhere where your guy can see it to throw it in. It's not stick to the play and just throw it. But yeah, it wound up. I thought it was a well-designed play. I don't think the issue was the play design, but yeah, Buddy kind of running his man into it is what wound up making it ultimately be a turnover. And look, the Warriors still had an opportunity at that point to get a stop. They did get a stop. They couldn't get the offensive rebound, and Edgecombe put it back. And then even after that, the long pass down to DeAnthony Melton, I thought Melton was going to score or get fouled. I mean, it in the moment I was, oh my God, like, he's got it. And then Tyrese Maxey with a flying block that was a hell of a play by Maxey. Not a goaltend, but also close to being a goaltend. Like, it was it was close to being, it was not. But I mean, that's how bang. I think that play was in the final second there. All right, let's move forward here. Just one more from Steve. Actually, a couple more from Steve. A big picture answer from Steve on the first quarter of the season, but let's first focus on this game. And he said earlier he thought they deserved to win the game. I don't think you deserve to win any game where you get outscored 30-10 in the first quarter. Credit as they may get for coming back in it. But here's Steve on the psyche of the team and being able to bounce back off of a game that they thought in the final minute that they were going to win.
Gut punch, total gut punch. There's couple of these every year, and this one's going to sting, but yeah, you always learn from wins and losses. We'll watch the tape. The biggest thing, I think, the biggest lesson is can we find groups out there consistently that can play together, compete together, take care of the ball like that last group did, and have that kind of competitive spirit, have that be your identity. Every game's going to be different. Some nights the ball goes in, other nights it doesn't, but you just want to establish who you are as a team, and that's what I'm looking for right now.
And the Warriors just have not been able to do that, other than, the first 4 games of the year, the 5 games of the year, they're 4-1. They did that a little bit, and looked well put together, but then they kind of hit a wall, and Steph gets sick, and then they wind up at 6-6, and agendas are being questioned at that point. It rallied everybody, along with Steph going nuts, to be able to win a couple of games in San Antonio, plus the third game in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, to get to 9-6. And then they hit another wall at that point, coming off of the game against New Orleans, going back to November the 16th. They lose in Orlando. They rest everybody in Miami. Now you're 9-8, and you come home, and things just haven't been the same for this team since they came home off of that long road trip. And thus the circumstances. You don't necessarily expect you're going to win that game in Orlando, but then you punt on the Miami game, and then you come home thinking, all right, get back on track against the Blazers, and you wind up losing to the Blazers because of turnovers and rebounds. You lose to the Rockets without KD, turnovers and rebounds, and you end up with a 2-3 homestand, and the only wins you get are the Jazz and the Pelicans, and you come out of it with Jimmy Butler hurt, and you come out of it with Steph Curry hurt, and now you're back on that treadmill away from 500, just trying to get back as the Warriors dip below here at 11-12. So yeah, Warriors a little bit beyond the quarter pole, and we'll get our last Steve Kerr clip before we hear from some Pat Spencer and DeAnthony Melton following the game. But here's what Steve had to say about the has to be disappointing first quarter of the season. I think the Warriors thought they were going to be a lot better through 23 games than 11-12.
I don't ever have any expectations coming into the year for injuries. We just roll with whatever's coming our way. So we have a lot of depth. We believe we can win games like tonight, without, our 3 best players. And I thought we deserved to, frankly, but we couldn't quite close it.
The reality is they don't have enough to win on nights like tonight. They don't. Because more often than not, it's going to look like the first quarter than the second half if you're going to be playing that group consistently. All due respect and props and flowers to the Pat Spencers and the Guy Santoses and the Quentin Posts and DeAnthony Melton, who we're going to hear from. But the reality is, part of the flaw of this roster is the belief that they, one, thought they could be good enough with the group as a whole to where they could punt on some games here and there and have it not impact them. Shame on them, part 2, if they actually believe the fact that they'd have the ability to win their share of games without all 3 guys, because they in no way, shape, or form have that level of talent on their roster. But again, with their 3 best players all being north of 35 in terms of the age, that's the predicament they find themselves in. And look, they built the roster. They built the roster with the belief that they had enough. And so if they don't, it's on them, and it's on them to fix. All right, let's hear rapid fire. A couple of Pat Spencer cuts. We got a few here to get to. Here's Pat's view on the turnover that wound up going to him on the inbounds pass intended, I think, for DeAnthony Melton. But let's hear from Pat.
Got a little jumbled up. Had no timeouts left, so it felt like I didn't have a guy open. Felt like Melt was popping open, but it was just poor timing with Buddy trying to flash to the ball. Was on count number 4 in my head, so I had to get off of it. I felt like the best option at that time was Melt popping to space. Just didn't have any timeouts left.
Yeah, and it looked like that was going to be the right decision. And Melton's somebody that can hit free throws, but Buddy, again, as we've talked about a couple of times here, kind of ran and got in there, and it helped allow for Edgecombe to be able to make the steal on that note. Pat Spencer in the 20s in terms of minutes played in this one tonight. Does Pat Spencer feel like he's earned even more playing time than we've seen here in these last handful of games?
We're deep. We got a lot of guys that can play and guys that have proven it time after time. And so I think the tough part, I don't envy Steve's job at all. I think the most important thing for us is finding an identity. When we have number 30, we have a pretty clear-cut identity with how we want to play when we're out there. When we don't, we tend to slow the ball down with certain groups. Other groups, we have a little bit more pace. So right now, we're ultimately, because of injuries, because of absences, we're trying to really find an identity with where we're at. So, yeah, I feel like I can be a big part of that equation, but I do not envy Steve's job at all.
No, it's a very difficult job and a very diplomatic, I think, Pat Spencer on that front. And we go back to what Steve had to say about Pat. And, he said, yeah, when Steph's out, Pat's definitely going to play. But the question is going to become, when Steph's back, does Pat Spencer creep in and have an opportunity to get on the field a little bit? And I still think the answer is probably going to be no on that front. Again, there is a distinction that I think, needs to be made between, the player Brandon Podziemski is when Podziemski's playing well versus the player Pat Spencer is when Pat Spencer's playing well. Again, right now though, go to Pat, play Pat, flip a coin as to who's playing better on a given night. And if Pat's playing better on a given night, you get him in there. I think it does become more tricky when Steph's back, because you like to play pods with Steph. You like to play pods almost as the backup. That's where D'Anthony Melton comes in, and he can take some of those minutes, as we've discussed a lot. But I also think the leash for Podziemski's got to get shorter. And I think it will, beginning even on Saturday with the Warriors taking on Cleveland before heading to Chicago. All right, one more Pat Spencer. We heard Steve Kerr credit Pat for being a part of the Warriors' identity. What is Pat Spencer, a guy in a two-way contract, believe that means to hear from his head coach?
Yeah, I appreciate it. He's had my back the whole time. For me, it's just who I am. It's innate. I'm going to go out there and compete and lay it on the line no matter who I'm playing against. So, thankful that he follows that and sees that. And ultimately, like I said, in that first half, when we don't have it going, somebody's got to come out in the second half and raise that level as a competitor. And ultimately, I think that's part of the reason I'm here.
It definitely is, and he's got an edge to him. Pat Spencer believes Pat Spencer belongs, and I think that's the number one takeaway. He really is kind of the perfect 11 to 15 type player on your roster. Somebody that in a perfect world, you want the guys that you plan to be 1 through 10 on the roster, or 1 through 12, or 1 through 14 on the roster to be able to take the minutes and play well. You want that, but having a guy who isn't going to complain if he's not playing, but also can make an impact if he is playing, that to me is exactly what you want in terms of a change of pace at the back end of your roster. Rip up that two-way contract though as soon as you can, and get Pat Spencer a full NBA contract and the salary bump that comes with it, given the level that he's been able to bring to the table. All right, let's hear from D'Anthony Melton, short and sweet and to the point here. His first game in over a year, almost 13 months for D'Anthony Melton. Here's what he had to say about getting back to action in the NBA and back with the Dubs.
It felt amazing. Besides that first little stint, I felt fatigued, just, everything you work for, and just coming back now. So besides that, I felt great.
Terrific night for D'Anthony Melton in his return to play. 14 points. We talked about it. 3 assists. Had a couple of steals. He was getting into the paint. He was creating. Like he just got to the free throw line. Like D'Anthony Melton is a winning player. Can the Warriors keep D'Anthony Melton healthy? Is going to be the big question here. So let's hear another one from D'Anthony Melton. What does he think of the expectations of this team? Again, major disappointment as they sit here under 500, 23 games into the season. But what is D'Anthony Melton? Because he had options. Like he he liked his experience with the Warriors and the way this team looked with him on the roster before he got hurt last year. A big part of at the point in which he got injured, I think they were 10-2 on their way to 12-3. But what does DeAnthony Melton think of what this team can be throughout the course of this season?
I mean, expectations always have to stay high. I think I have faith in all these guys in the locker room. Even at halftime, I was just, telling them some of the shots that we took, they jumped out the rim. And I think we took some good ones that ultimately, sometimes will go down more times than not, but they didn't. So us being down 24, I was just telling the guys, like, it's not necessarily 24. We should really be down like 12 or something like that. So just stay with it, stay confident, and just keep firing. And I think we just started to trip away and just, this is a resilient team, and we know how to win, and most teams don't. So I think we definitely did a good job with that.
All right, so that's DeAnthony Melton, and some of what he can bring to the table is that belief. Maybe add to the confidence, I think, of some of these young players by taking a little bit off their plate. One more from DeAnthony Melton. He is a vet, even only at 27 years old. He is somebody that I think in NBA terms is kind of wise beyond his years in the league, and been a key contributor on some really good teams throughout the early part of his career when he's been healthy. So DeAnthony Melton asked about a couple of the guys who have been problematic, let's say, in terms of their play to begin this season. And tonight, no different in Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski. What does a vet have to say about young players that are going through some struggles in a big way right now?
I think everybody, should step up. It's everybody's livelihood on the line too at the same time. So I think everybody's stepping up, but specifically for those two guys, just staying confident, I think is the biggest thing, and instilling that for them. And just play your game. Sometimes a lot of outside noise that goes into it, especially young players in such a great organization. You're gonna have a lot of he say, she say stuff that's going on. But I think just staying confident and playing your game, and take whatever comes with it. People are always gonna say something, so just playing confident and being aggressive. Sometimes you better rather err on the side of being aggressive than not.
Yeah, I think Brandon Podziemski speaks confidently, but he is not playing confidently by any stretch. And I think he's very much in his own head. I think that the fact that he is a pretty aware person and player in terms of what is the media saying, what are the fans saying, he's very aware of it. And so I think he feels the fact that overall the Warrior fan base is not feeling him at this point as a whole. And I think that's become a little bit of a thing, and he's got to get out of his own head and be able to just kind of let it rip and do the things that he does well. Kuminga's just got to get back to playing harder, to be perfectly honest, and get back to doing the things that the coaching staff wants him to do. Get back to trying to be the guy that he was in those first 5 games of the season, and rebound and defend and slash and get your offense off of the actions of the rest of the team, and take the open three from the corner, basically, if they dare you to take it. It's, Kuminga's got to bring it at another level. I don't think Podziemski's effort is an issue. I think it's more the mental aspect for him. Kuminga's got to get back to freaking playing hard and playing like a guy that actually wants to try and help his way off of the Warriors roster by being better for the next 42 days while he's on the Warriors roster, because he's only hurting himself at this point. And if he's not 100%, then he shouldn't be out there. Like, if he's not healthy, if he doesn't think he can slash the way we've seen him do it, throughout the beginning of his career, then they need to put him on the shelf and allow for him to get healthy, because I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and not get in his head as to what he's thinking. But it's looked like he's quiet quitting. It really has. It's run through my mind. And maybe it's injury, maybe it's not 100%, whatever, but he's got to get back to bringing the energy. All right, let's take a quick timeout. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Lengthy segment of Sounds of Dubs OT. Appreciate Anthony Garcia and our buddy Cole Lapelt, who's sitting in here for Kyle Haar. great stuff to help put all of that together and be able to give you a little bit of a taste from the Warriors locker room in Philadelphia. All right, Dubs OT, we're rolling on here. We'll come back. We'll get one more segment in. We'll get to a lot of chats, Cole's clicks. We'll do some fun with numbers, and we'll wrap things up and head toward the weekend here on the Sports Leader.
Dubs OT with John Dickinson keeps rolling. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, final segment. Warriors lose to the Philadelphia 76ers tonight, 99-98 the final. We're back here, Dubs OT with JD, 808 KNBR. If you want to jump in, join the conversation on the phone lines. We'll get to some text messages, Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line as well here before we call it a night on this Thursday. Warriors are 11-12 on the season as they dip below 500 following this one and a couple of more games on the road before they get their rest. Big game in the comeback from Pat Spencer and Guy Santos helping the Warriors get back into this one. But lengthy sounds at Dubs OT tonight. Let's get back into the YouTube chat here to close things up. Cole LaPelt, appreciate him, in for Kyle Haar as Kyle continues his Hawaiian vacation this week. What do we got, Cole? Let's try to run through a bunch of these. Max Lopez, last game we couldn't win, so whatever. Tonight we should have stolen. I think that's well said. Tonight would have been a game that had they won, they certainly would have earned it. There's no question about that. But I mean, man, you look at the comeback and you look at how bad that first quarter was, and you think, how can those two things be from the same game? Basically with an even deeper portion of the Warriors roster being the group that brought them back and nearly gave them a chance to be able to win it. But no, good comment from Max. I'm with you. I think tonight's one that you win, you feel good about it, and you get back above 500. I think finding a way to win one of these three games with Steph missing all of them was the goal, basically, and to be able to get that out of the way immediately in the first game of the trip and do it in the fashion that they would have. It would have been, I think, a real springboard for the Warriors, who now find themselves going and playing Cleveland and Chicago. They might have an opportunity to steal one of those, in particular the Chicago game, but, that's the second of a back-to-back. I don't think Draymond's playing the next two games if he's in a walking boot, although he did tell Anthony Slater that he's going to try to play through it. I got to think they would not play him these next two and give him a full week to kind of rest and heal up, although I guess it is the same foot issue that he's been dealing with of late and had been playing through there. So good comment to get us rolling here in this segment, Max. We'll move forward here, try to get through Rusty Nail. Those 3 first-round picks are about to be really valuable, as we can see. I wouldn't trade the future for Giannis. Our lottery odds are increasing soon. The dynasty is likely over. Yeah, but that's a rebuild. Like, that is tapping out on what's left of Steph. You can't, I would not do that. Look, I would not be reluctant. I would not be reluctant to trade picks because you're going to be bad anyway when Steph retires. So to me, you try to extend the game as long as you can. And eventually you're going to have to go into a rebuild no matter what. So I understand not wanting to trade picks too far out, picks that are clearly beyond Steph's career. But when I read the report today about, hey, the Warriors can offer Kuminga, Podziemski, and 4 firsts, we're talking 26, 28, 30, 32. So yeah, you're talking probably a couple of post-Steph picks. So that I can understand a little bit. What would it ultimately look like? The other part of that report was that the Warriors would look to move Draymond in addition, obviously, to Kuminga, not to Milwaukee, but somewhere else, to be able to facilitate the deal. Obviously, Kuminga alone in terms of the salary matching wouldn't get it done. So the dynasty could very well be over. But again, with Steph on the roster for another 2 to 3 years, are you really going to tap out on that? I don't know. Maybe it comes down to the decision between 3 picks and 4 picks. But the other part of the equation is if you get Giannis, Giannis is only 30. So you're hoping at that point, I guess he is going to be 31 on Friday or Saturday. Giannis's birthday is Friday. I think Saturday is Giannis's birthday. He'll be 31 on Saturday. So, but the thought is, you're going to have 5 years of Giannis. So you're not going to bottom out, with Giannis on the roster, even at 35. And you'd obviously have Steph for the next few years, in addition to that. So you have to calculate all that. Giannis might be the one guy they would potentially give up all of that for. But the question to me is more about, is the front end of that with the players that would be going the other way, Kuminga and Podziemski, even nearly enough to get the Bucks to consider it? And I think at this point, those guys are not at that level to where they would consider it. But good comment there. Appreciate the opinion from one of the regulars, Rusty Nail, here on Dubs OT. Robert Brown, JD is going to start standing for just drinking and not John Dickinson if he has to watch this much longer. We'll be all right. We can fight through. Tonight was an interesting show to do, though, because I was all ready to light into him for basically the entire roster stinking. And, I was really kind of working myself into it. I was really, really frustrated with the start and Podziemski and Kuminga and just, where, and obviously we got to that anyway, but I'll be honest. I think that every game the Warriors don't have Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond is going to be like the first quarter tonight. I go into every game that they play without those three, and I actually think the norm, it should be what the first quarter looked like, or what the first half, let's say looked like. And so I was ready. Like, I don't, as you all know, I hate load management. I hate when guys get nights off, and obviously Steph's legitimately hurt and Jimmy is banged up as well. But this team has shown that they cannot win games without those guys. They've shown that they have to work really hard to win games when they have them against just about everybody. So I was all worked up tonight, ready to kind of lay into them for the effort and the roster composition and the fact that they're basically going to be 11-14, and they've decided that they're just going to start their season over on December 12th after they get 4 days off. And, then you give the guys that came back a hell of a lot of credit, because they almost were able to come back and steal the game. But it's a tricky show, because here's the reality. Like, everybody can throw their hands up about Podziemski, throw their hands up about Kuminga and all that. But, I mean, the reality is, when you don't win the game tonight, a lot of what happened doesn't really matter when you don't win the game. Like, because it's going to be like, are they going to do that again against Cleveland? Probably not. They can do it again against Chicago? Probably not. And you're thinking, well, maybe they're not going to get down 30-10, and that's equally true. But to me, it's like, what are the when you separate? Oh, they lost the game. It's like, all right, well, Melton's a keeper. Well, we knew Melton's a keeper, and basically, should Pods get more minutes, or should Spencer get more minutes than Pods are coming up? Okay. Maybe do you play Guy Santos a little more? Okay. Like that. I mean, that's it. Like, that's what it actually amounts to. But is that going to mean you're going to beat Cleveland or Chicago this weekend? Probably not. So, I mean, you kind of wind up back in the same spot. And so you want to appropriately give a guy like Pat Spencer his flowers, and Guy Santos and those guys. I mean, it's a hell of an effort, and they're NBA players too. And, but at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, this Warriors team is still just not good enough to compete at the level. And we hear all the talk about the depth, and they have depth, but I think at times the depth has been a curse for this team, because it's just, they have too many players that are of a similar level of talent, and it just makes the job that Steve Kerr has to do to decide who's going to play on what night all the more difficult. All right, let's go with a few more here. Sounds of Dubs OT. Joke's on you. Also, does Pat Spencer just look at Pods on the plane and tell him to get up? He's on the seat. Yeah, maybe. No, Pat is an extremely well-respected member of the Warriors. Good one from Jokes on You. We'll go a little more rapid fire here. Cowboy, a lot of ifs for JK to be good. Too many flaws in his game to fix. Ball handling, free throws, three-point shots, moving without the ball. Yeah, the handle is the one, right? The handle is the one. Like, it can take a while for a guy to become a better shooter, but if he should do almost nothing but work on his handle, because that's the thing that can get him to the cup. And he just does not have a good enough handle against quality defenders. He doesn't have a good enough handle against even like-sized defenders on a lot of nights. I mean, he truly is the kind of player that his athleticism only shows, honestly, against unathletic teams, like in a major way. It doesn't show. You would hope that a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, his athleticism would show against other athletes, but it doesn't against teams like OKC, and it doesn't over the years. Payne, JK's quietly checked out. It has definitely looked that way. I know he's been hurt. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt on the knee thing that's popped up here over the last few weeks, but it's also coincidental in terms of the knee thing pops up right when he's taken out of the starting lineup. And so now you wonder about that. But yeah, it has looked that way. And he just has not played the same way as he was with the same intent as he was early on in the year. All right, let's get a few more. Good one from Payne. Robert Brown might get blown out by Cleveland, especially Cleveland has been playing poorly and is going to want to blast a team like the Dubs, well, especially if it's the Dubs without Steph, without Jimmy, and without Draymond Green. And I'm looking back at the schedule from tonight. They did not play tonight. They got beat by Portland at home last night. And do they play a game tomorrow? They do. So Cleveland plays tomorrow at home against San Antonio. So Cleveland will be on the second of a back-to-back when they take on the Warriors on Saturday night, and then the Warriors will be on the second of a back-to-back when Chicago, when they play Chicago. Chicago plays tomorrow night at home against Indiana. So Chicago will have the rest advantage on the Warriors Sunday. The Warriors will have a rest advantage on Cleveland tomorrow, but that or on Friday night, but that may not matter at all if you look at the Warriors, potentially playing the game without Steph and Jimmy and Draymond. I think a lot of teams are looking for the Warriors to come into their building, especially if Steph Curry's not going to be playing. But it almost bit the Sixers tonight. So let's get 3 or 4 more here, Cole. Max Lopez, when Iggy said management disrespected the dynasty by bringing in 18-year-olds, there were no truer words. Yeah, that is something that we can look back on, and in hindsight, it appears as if the Warriors ownership and front office believed that the run was done. And when Klay Thompson went out for a second time and they had the number 2 pick that became James Wiseman, and then, Steph had an incredible year that year, the shortened year by COVID, whenever we were coming out of COVID in 2021, but the Warriors were basically a play-in team and needed to get hot at the end of that year. I mean, it just, even that year, throw out the title year, 23, 24, 25. So that 1 year, and then the last, 3 years, it's felt like the same year. Like, this team just stinks at the beginning of the year. They stink all the way until the end. They try to get it together at the end and then make a quality enough run to where they can avoid the play-in or get in the play-in, or, I mean, this was supposed to be in the 1 year they avoided that, what happened? The 1 year they made themselves good enough to avoid that, what happened? They won the title. So I'm not saying you'd win the title, but the reality is you'd at least have a better shot. But again, the roster's just not good enough. But yeah, they go with Wiseman, they go with Kuminga, they go with the project guys. And now the project guys were 4 or 5 years later, and they're either gone or they're still not at a level where they can even consistently contribute as role players. I mean, forget about future stars. We're still wondering if Kuminga and Moody can be role players in their 5th year consistently. And Kuminga can't. Kuminga's done. Moody still can, but not as much as everybody wants him to. And then Podziemski is so far in his own head that, it's repairable, I think, with Podziemski, but the dude's got to clear his head. And I don't know how many conversations he's had with Steve Kerr, but he's going to have to have a couple more. All right, let's do 2 more here, and then we'll close it up. Gene, who's ever the starting guard for Cleveland, He will have a good game. Point of attack is terrible for the Warriors. Yeah. I mean, that's a fact. Let's get another one in here real quick before our comment of the night. Bennett Roth, I'm wondering if tonight is going to be a catalyst for this team heading for a long-term sub 500 record. Well, if they can't get one of these next two, I mean, that's -3. And then you're coming home and you're playing Minnesota next week after the little break. And then you're going to Portland. You haven't beaten Portland this year in 2 tries. You're going back up there. And then you've got Phoenix a couple of times. Phoenix is playing well. I mean, every team the Warriors are going to play here after these next couple, and even including these next couple, but every team the Warriors are going to play has a better record than the Warriors at this point. So, really all the way up until Christmas against Dallas. So when we've seen them get hot when they have to, but yeah, they're digging another one of these holes that I don't think they can come out of at the level that they want to with the roster that they currently have. All right, let's get our comment of the night.
Now, time for the Dubs OT comment of the night.
Joke's on you, JD. My main concern is the value for Kuminga and Pods. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Whatever the Jazz wanted last year, double it. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that is no truer words. I mean, my goodness, you look at the, Pods going back to, and we're talking about what, a year and a half ago, the value. I mean, Kuminga's value is less than it was a year ago at this time. It's less than it was in the summer, I feel like right now, given the contract that he's on. Podziemski, the one thing about Podziemski that does add to his, that where his value isn't hurt as much is the fact that he's cheap. He's under $4 million. Like he would be the guy with his contract that would almost be thrown in to help add to Kuminga's value, honestly, only because of the price point, not necessarily because of the upside or anything like that. So, all right, great stuff tonight in the comments. Let's go ahead and close this thing out with some fun with numbers.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, we'll close it up here quickly with fun with numbers. It's I told Cole we were going to get out by this time already, and of course my long-winded ass is still going here. So we'll get a few quickies here. Warriors are 11-12, 0-5 on the road against the Eastern Conference, and the Warriors' 11th different starting lineup this season. The 22-0 run really proved to be the difference. First time a Warriors opponent had done that in almost 5 full years. It was that 2020-2021 year in April against the Mavs. Mavs went on a 28-0 run against the Warriors there. Season low 10 in the first quarter. It was the worst first quarter for any team in the NBA this season, by the way. Warriors fewer than 100 points for just the third time. And then DeAnthony Melton played for the first time since November 12th of 2024. 14 points in 21 minutes. Pat Spencer, 16 points, one off his career high for Golden State as they will reconvene in Cleveland on Saturday. All right, big thanks to our guy Cole LaPelt in our Daly City studios. Big thanks to Anthony Garcia. Huge thanks to everybody in the YouTube chat, those who called, those who texted. We will talk to you Saturday in the morning, just Dubs, 11 a.m. until noon, right after 49er Forecast with Larry Krueger. Be taking your calls and your texts and all of that coming up here on Saturday from 11 until 12, and then back following the Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers right around 7 o'clock for Dubs OT right here on the Sports Leader. So we'll talk to you then. Warriors lose it 99-98. JD right here on the Sports Leader.